time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn his reward, don't forget the oppressed, and when you go to sleep at night.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to one of your favorite show on Huda TV, A Time to Please Allah Azza wa Jal. Before we start, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us barakah and tranquility and peace while we discuss about the way of pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal. With us today, we have Brother Muhammad Nubi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
كيف حالك يا brother?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. I'm fine, alhamdulillah. I'm happy to be here with you and be, of course, on Huda TV and A Time to Please Allah. And we hope, as you said, that inshallah ta'ala, whatever we discuss today will be of some benefit, because the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you are those who are beneficial to others.
Very good.
So we should always be trying to benefit others no matter what we're doing, and to do it in the best way and in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I believe last week you started the topic of education and Al-Islam, and bi'idhnillah ta'ala today we'll try to continue and emphasize a little bit more on how it could be more, how can education benefit our society, and Islamic education benefit or affect our society if it's not there, and how it can even affect the people who are in charge of us if ever that knowledge are not there. So today bi'idhnillah ta'ala, and we can even speak about how the education can affect or can bring benefit to the Western society as well bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And tafadhal.
Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yes, last week we were talking about this subject about Islam and education, and of course Islam being at the forefront of education from the prophetic sense, in that we discussed that when the Prophet ﷺ received the first revelation, it was Iqra, to read in the name of your Lord. Meaning, and we discussed this from various contexts, and Allah knows best what this is exact meaning, but we understand this generally to mean that we are to educate ourselves, that we are to study, we are to observe the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are to take from what we learn, from what Allah gives us, again, as you said, to benefit mankind. And one of the things that we discussed on the last program was the fact that the early Muslims, when they learned from the Prophet ﷺ, when they learned from the ayat of Allah, when they observed the creation, and and they were taught, of course, by the best of all creation, Muhammad ﷺ, they took that knowledge and then they shared it with others, and they spread it, throughout the world, and we're impacted by it today, even in Muslim societies. And this is important for us as Muslims, because we have to understand is that and reflect upon is that education is at the core of our deen, because we can't even practice Islam properly if we're not educated properly. We can't even practice the 5 pillars of Islam, or in terms of our ibadah and the rituals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded upon us, and following the sunnah. This is a part of education.
Yeah.
So the more that we educate ourselves on what Allah has commanded us to do and what Allah has prohibited from us, and how to follow the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, then we're able to actually can say that we are truly educated, if you will, and then we can pass this on. Because again, the Prophet ﷺ said, teach one ayah, if that's all that you know. At least if you know that one ayah, then to share that ayah.
Yes.
And so the part of the educational process is the sharing of knowledge and information and passing that on. And we talked about this in terms of the part of the isnad, if you will, and because how we learn how everything really should go back to, for the Muslim, should go back to Allah and His Messenger, and His final Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
It is very true indeed. When you're actually saying the hadith of بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, it shows that Islam emphasizes a lot upon education. It's true. Islam emphasizes a lot upon knowledge. Even if we were to go back to the first ayah or the first word that was revealed on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was all about recitation, iqra, recite, read, and it all go back to education. If ever, now, when we look at it, how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized on education. If you were to look at it, when after the Battle of Badr, what was the deal between the Muslim and the Quraysh? Is that the knowledgeable or the one who could read and write among the Quraysh, they had to teach the Muslim how to read and write.
SubhanAllah.
This shows you, this is one of the deal. It shows you how important education and knowledge is in Islam. And even, I remember one of the, of course, I remember reading that one of the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ and he wanted to get married. And he was so poor.
Yes.
He had no money. And then, last resort, then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told him, whatever you have from the Quran, teach it to your wife and this will be a dowry for you. This is going to be a mahar for you. Usually we give money, we give some kind of gift.
Yes.
But that Sahabi didn't have nothing to give. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the knowledge that you have, then teach that knowledge to your wife and this is going to be a mahar for you. So this shows again how important knowledge is. Like how you said in the beginning, if ever knowledge and education won't be there, you will not be able to have a proper relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal.
And this is the most important thing.
Definitely.
Is having that proper relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from that knowledge and from this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then is the relationship with the other human beings.
Definitely.
With the community. And then the relationship with the creation.
Allah.
In the right way, in the right manner. And then this way, knowledge then has a purpose.
Yeah.
You see, because knowledge just for the sake of knowledge, just for the sake of knowledge alone, or as we discussed to an extent last week, just for the intellectual process is not true knowledge, or it doesn't give the really benefit.
Okay.
Because really for the Muslim really has to always keep in mind is that our ultimate goal is Jannah.
Definitely.
Our ultimate goal is Jannah. So the knowledge that we gain is to lead us, inshallah, if we use it, is to lead us to Jannah.
Definitely.
And this is what we want, not for money.
Yeah.
Not for money, not for worldly power, or not for, worldly gain, or for all these kinds of things that many people are seeking. We want that knowledge so that we can attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His rahmah and get to Jannah. In that process, this knowledge helps the human being, helps the human family, because this is knowledge from Allah. All knowledge that is good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are using that knowledge to benefit mankind. And actually it's a way of praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a way of showing our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we take the knowledge, that which He has allowed us to learn.
Definitely.
Because we didn't learn it of our own.
Yes.
He subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to learn it. And so when we then use that knowledge, then we're showing how grateful we are when we use that knowledge to benefit, other human beings and the Muslims in particular and human beings at large. And this is a part of our ibadah, and this is a part of an obligation that we have, upon ourselves to do that. And that's what, I believe that the early Muslims saw. That's what the Sahaba realized, that this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes.
So what do you do when you have a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You want to share that gift. They understood that it's not just for me to keep, it is for me to share. Because by sharing it, this is a way again of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of being grateful, to Allah, and as a way of also uplifting mankind. Because we've been put on this earth.
Yes,
we have been put on this earth, and we've been put on this earth to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we take that knowledge and we use that knowledge in whatever way and in the best way possible, to benefit mankind. So therefore, in our schools and in our educational institutions, this is something that as Muslims we have to always keep in mind, that it's not knowledge just for the sake of knowledge. It's knowledge that is driven by a purpose, and that purpose really is to fulfill some of the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to please Him. And to please Him. Yeah.
Definitely. Because Even when we look at in Surah Isra, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. For verily we have honored the Bani Adam. We have honored the human beings, the children of Adam. So now, when we get ourselves, the ulama, they were like, okay, let's compare the insan and the hayawan. Let's compare the human beings and the animals.
Yes.
The thing that makes us different is that we've got intellect. We can think, we can ponder. That's why in many places in the Quran, Allah says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you reflect?
Yes.
أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Don't you remember? أَفَلَا تَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Don't you think about it? Why? And it's all go back to knowledge. It all go back to how you use the brain and the intellect that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you. Definitely Allah says, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, all those people who are knowledgeable, all those people who know about Allah Azza wa Jalla, can you compare them with those who do not know? For verily they are not the same. One of the questions that Allah is going to ask you on the Day of Judgment, the knowledge that you acquire and how did you use that knowledge? So it shows that knowledge is very, very important. Education is very important. Nowadays, we find people are falling into a very, very dangerous aspect of life, which is something called innovation. Lack of knowledge leads you to innovation. Why? You try, when I'm in innovation in the religion.
I understand, yes.
Innovation in the religion. Innovation outside the religion is something praiseworthy.
Yes,
We're going to speak about that, inshallah. Yeah. But innovation into the religion, when people, they do not know, they don't have much knowledge about how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came, how to apply the Quran to your life, what do? They tend to make ibadah according to their own
thinking.
Yes. This is when they fall into bid'ah or innovation.
Yes.
So gaining knowledge, it is very, very important. Even the Prophet Muhammad said, من سلك طريقا يلتمس في علما سهل الله له طريقا إلى الجنة. Look at this. Which hadith do we find that the Prophet Muhammad is giving out such a beautiful way of getting Jannah? He said, whoever set out to seek knowledge, Allah Azza wa Jalla will make his way and path easy to Jannah. Allahu Akbar.
Allah.
Again, it shows how education is so important.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, this is a very, very serious and very serious issue in terms of the education and the Muslim educating himself and educating his family and educating his community and being a part of the educational process for the Ummah. Because actually, we talk now, I mean, we realize now that our Ummah, is not where it should be and needs to be, and certainly where it was.
Yeah, where it was. Yeah.
And so, but if we're going to get back to that point, if we have hopes of getting back to that point, it has to be through education.
Definitely.
Now, what kind of education is it? Because many times we in these days and times, we'll run to all of the universities and to the major universities. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. But we have to understand what those universities, or many of the universities that are established now, are established for. They're established for the most part, for dunya purposes.
Yes.
For dunya purposes. But when the early Muslims first established the educational institutions, it was for the glorification of Allah. Well, it was to fulfill the commandments of Allah.
Alhamdulillah.
So when those first universities in Baghdad and in Iraq and
yes.
all those other places that were established, I was reading just recently one of the first ones, one of the Muslims called Bayt al-Hikmah.
Bayt al-Hikmah in Baghdad.
The house, yes, in Baghdad.
Yeah.
The house of Hikmah, the house of wisdom.
Yes.
When we think of wisdom, we don't think of the worldly things.
Yeah.
We think of the wise use
Definitely.
of the knowledge that one's had. So the early Muslims were writing because after studying and learning from the Prophet ﷺ and from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, then they were writing because they wanted to put that knowledge in a form whereby many people could benefit. So that meaning libraries and books and were being established so people could learn from it.
Yeah.
And learn from it with the intent of one knowing, to have knowledge of what Allah SWT has revealed to his Prophet ﷺ what the Prophet ﷺ has said, and then of course how to apply that. And they wanted to look at it and to study it again, not for the philosophical debate, but for the standpoint of how can we understand this knowledge, and how can we take this knowledge again and to elevate the human society.
Definitely.
So our role in terms of for the ummah now again is we have to re-educate ourselves. We do have to re-educate ourselves, and as you just said, simply we have to go back to the two major sources, and that is the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. Those are the two major. This is where we have to start from as far as the ummah is concerned. So that way, while we're pursuing other forms of knowledge, because we want to first start with the divine knowledge.
Yes, definitely.
Because with the divine knowledge, with the revealed knowledge, that gives us the proper foundation.
Exactly.
So that way, when we're studying other forms of knowledge, all right, we'll have the ability to discern whether that knowledge, what's useful, what's beneficial, what's not useful, and what's not beneficial.
Definitely.
You understand what I mean? What leads to Jannah, what leads to Nar.
Yeah, the only time of knowing this is for you to know the divine.
The only way to
first.
know that is to know that.
Yeah.
That's the only way for you to know that. So now we find, unfortunately, now many Muslims who are seeking that knowledge and who have gained what we call the secular or the worldly knowledge without first studying the revealed knowledge.
Yes.
And therefore, they are gaining much from the dunya by this knowledge, but losing the akhirah.
Yes.
And this is a disaster for them and for our ummah, because this sets us on a kind of, you should say, on kind of a treadmill where we're just running, and we're running in place, but we are not really getting to where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to get. We're building muscles. We're running on the treadmill, in the gym, figuratively speaking, in terms of that kind of pursuit of the knowledge, but it's really not taking us anywhere. We're just kind of going in circles, because that knowledge does not really elevate us from that particular standpoint. So we first want to emphasize this divine knowledge, and this is why in our schools, and particularly in our Muslim institutions, and even as families, we will have to emphasize for the little children, for our kids, first the Quran and the Sunnah. I will tell you an interesting story, really. It was amazing to me. This past Ramadan, actually here in Dubai, I was in a gathering where some of the contestants of the Quran contest that's promoted here, mashallah, by the rulers of the society, and the Quran contest during Ramadan. And so some of those young men were a part of a gathering. We had hosted them at one of the centers, just to, alhamdulillah, to welcome them and to hear from them. So we were listening to their stories. Mashallah, first of all, most of them were young, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And they were already Hafiz of Quran.
MashaAllah.
But there was one young man, I'm not sure where exactly he was from, but there was a young man, he was an adult. He was an adult. And so he told a story. He said, when I began to learn Quran, when my mother and my father, my parents put me in Quran school, of course I was a young boy. And I began to learn and to memorize the Quran and to memorize the sciences of Islam. And he says, I didn't go to the secular schools, if you will. He said they didn't allow me. And he says, I always felt like that maybe I was missing something, or that I would be behind educationally and academically. But then after he had learned the Quran, and he'd memorized the Quran and learned it, actually, so it's not just memorizing, we can talk about that in a moment too. Then he began to enroll himself into the, regular, studies, academic studies.
After he became Hafiz al-Quran.
After he became Hafiz al-Quran.
All right.
And he said it was amazing. He realized as a result of becoming Hafiz al-Quran and learning the Quran and studying the Quran, that it advanced his academic studies.
Allahu Akbar. Barakah.
He said, for sure, it advanced his academic studies. And and I was sitting there listening to this young man. It was clearly a very intelligent young man. And so I was thinking about this. How many of us as parents, first we want our kids to go to the best schools.
Oh yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can learn Quran later. You know what I mean? You can get that later. No, but you want to go and get your, your master's, your PhD, all these kinds of, and which is good. We're not saying this is not good and we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But in Islam has priorities.
Definitely.
First things first.
Yeah.
First things first.
It's true.
First, when you're going to build a house, you have to lay a firm foundation.
It's true.
So that foundation for the Muslim has to be Quran and the Sunnah. So we have to have a strong emphasis upon learning that. Because the most important thing about this story and about this scenario this young man was sharing, and for us as Muslims, is again so that we can discern. If I'm aware and I'm knowledgeable of what Allah wants for me and what Allah asks of me, if I'm aware of that and what He wants me to pursue and not to pursue, what's beneficial and what's not beneficial, when I'm learning the other sciences,
Yes.
I'm now able to discern what I can take hold of and run with,
We should live.
and what I can just leave
Yes.
leave behind.
Yes.
So this is fantastic, really. So I said to myself, subhanAllah, this is something that every Muslim parent needs to hear.
Oh,
That man's
definitely.
story, that brother's story, I thought every Muslim parent should hear this.
Allah.
In other words, we shouldn't think as Muslim parents, don't think that, well, if I send my son to the Quran school, or if he spends a lot of time learning Quran and Hadith, that he's going to be behind. No, he's not going to be behind.
No.
How can you be behind when you've learned the Book of Allah?
No. You will
How
never
can you be behind? You can't be behind.
No, no.
There's no way possible for you to be behind. Now, I do want to make it clear, because I'm in education myself, as professionally,
Sure.
and we need to learn the biology and the sciences and the chemistry and the language. We need to know that.
Yeah.
We do need to know these
Definitely.
kinds of things, but we need to know them with the foundation.
Yes.
Another thing that I think that we need to be aware of is don't think that we have to do one to the exclusion of the other.
Yeah.
It can be done parallel.
Yes.
So what many parents I see do, alhamdulillah, mashallah, during the daytime, the kids go to the regular, secular schools, if you will. But in the evenings, their children are in the Quran schools and the Quran classes, or going to the masajid, and learning the Quran and learning the hadith. Why can't we do that?
MashaAllah.
Why shouldn't we do this?
It is
We should
very
be doing these kinds of things, so that our young brothers and sisters, as they're growing up, as they're learning, they're able now to, again, as we said, to discern and to be
Differentiate.
able to distinction,
Yeah.
to differentiate
Yeah.
between
Good and
that good and the bad, and the right and the wrong, and that which Allah wants, and not to fall, as you said most eloquently, not to fall into innovation in terms of our own religion.
Definitely.
Because this is the problem. Because one of the problems that we have in terms of particular Western education in particular, and ideologies, is that we rely on logic.
Subhanallah.
We rely totally upon logic.
Mm-hmm.
And Ali radiallahu anhu said something very profound.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very well familiar with this hadith. He said, if
All right.
logic were the key,
Yeah.
in terms of the deen, then we would not wipe over the tops
Very
of our shoes.
MashaAllah.
We would wipe under the bottom.
بإذن الله تعالى.
If logic were the answer.
It's true.
So
It's true.
in Western thought, Western Greek philosophies and all these other philosophies, it's all about the logic.
It's true.
It's all about reasoning and logic, our own logic.
Alhamdulillah.
Without understanding that our mind and our aql, our intellect, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and
Yeah,
has to
they
be
forgot-
guided by Allah subhanahu wa
They
ta'ala.
forgot that we've got something called عقل
Yes.
and نقل.
Yes.
بإذن الله تعالى we'll speak about that after the break.
Inshallah.
هذا والله تعالى أعلم. بإذن الله تعالى we shall be back. Stay tuned. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Please Allah, a chance to gain reward I will spend on you, He says.
TV commercials motivate viewers into immediate action and to sway consumer loyalty from one brand or service to the other. That's why we're here for you, to help you sell your products and services by using creative ideas that bring life into your own TV commercial. Advertise your business and branded products and services on Huda TV. We will offer you fast-paced and energetic 30-second affordable TV spots. Advertise on Huda TV, acquire fresh customers and stay within your budget. For more info or to receive a quote, please send your inquiries to advert@Huda TV. Huda TV.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قالوا أجئتنا لتأفكنا عن آلهتنا فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين
له ملك السماوات والأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور
فلما رأوه عارضا مستقبل أوديتهم قالوا هذا عارض ممطرنا بل هو ما استعجلتم به.
أخا عاد إذ أنذر قومه بالأحقاف وقد خلت النذر من بين يديه ومن خلفه ألا تعبدوا إلا الله إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم.
فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
بلى فهل يهلك إلا القوم الفاسقون.
Sent from Allah to an angel then to man. That man was Muhammad, the best of creation. A time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he said.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to one of your favorite show on Huda TV, A Time to Please Allah Azza wa Jal. Before we left for the break, our brother over here was talking about something called aql. And then I went in there and I said aql and naql. So now we're going to make a differentiation between aql and naql. Naql means what we're supposed to do is that we should take the naql awalan, which is the Quran and the Sunnah, and then we take the aql, the thing that we could say that's logic to us.
No.
So unfortunately, we find some people, some sect in Islam, what they do is they're like, we're going to look at the Quran and the Sunnah, and then if it actually makes sense to us, we're going to take it, or else we're not going to take it.
Yes.
This is one of the sects. May Allah Azza wa Jal forgive them and guide them. So we, like how you said, is that we not everything good according to logic sometimes when it comes to Islam. Whatever Allah Azza wa Jal, it's a test from Allah. He wants to see if you listen and obey.
Yes.
That's why something called سمعنا وأطعنا.
Yes.
And may Allah bless you for coming with that example when Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Yeah.
He said, if ever al-Islam would have been about al-aql, everything, then why do we have to wipe when we make masha on top? For verily it's about sami' and sama' wa ta'a.
Yeah.
It's about to obey,
Allah
and to listen. Like how you said, many people because of this, they fall into the concept of innovation and everything. Like how even you mentioned in the beginning that no matter what, if ever you've taken the Quran as the foundation of your knowledge, you will be raised in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Your rank will be raised in the eyes, even in front of the people as well.
Yes.
Because Allah Azza wa Jal said, يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. Allah Azza wa Jal is going to elevate the people who has been given knowledge, not one rank, not two ranks,
MashaAllah.
above Allah Azza wa Jal. And now if ever we go for the Quran, in which ayah did Allah Azza wa Jal praise the people like this? They're going to be blessed with ranks. You know, they're going to get near Allah Azza wa Jal, except in regards to knowledge.
Yes.
Even the ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. For verily those people who actually fear Allah the most are who?
The ulama.
The ulama. Again from knowledge, from education.
Yes.
Allah didn't say those who make more salah, more hajj, more siyam. Again, it's knowledge. Again, it is education.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You're absolutely right. And I'd like to bring out another example too. You're talking about those people who do say, you know, if I don't understand it,
I don't take it.
I don't take it.
Yes.
You know, which is, of course, is a wrong application of the knowledge itself.
Definitely.
But the most important thing for the Muslim, of course, is his obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even if we use our intellect properly, we would have to know if we have accepted that Allah is our Rabb. If we have accepted that Allah is our Rabb, that means we have accepted that He has created us and that He knows us better than we know ourselves. This is what it means. If I say Allah is my Lord, He's my Rabb, that He has created me, and the one who has created is superior, of course, to the created.
Yeah.
And the one who has created knows that which is created,
Yes.
which He has created.
Definitely.
In other words, if you and I have created something, if you will, and made something, we know that thing better than that thing knows itself, of course,
Yes.
because we are the creators, if you will, of that particular thing. So even if we are to use our knowledge, if we use our knowledge correctly, as a Muslim, the Muslim understands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, and He knows us better than we know ourselves, and He has infinite knowledge. Our knowledge is finite. So there are automatically some things that we're not going to understand.
Definitely.
Whether it's in the Quran or whether it's in the world, in the universe.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Because it's part of our iman. I'll give you one example, you know. And when we sometimes we're talking to people about, you know, giving them dawah, you know, they say, well, I can't see Allah.
Allah.
Well, can you see the wind? Can you see the wind? You can see the effects of the wind.
Definitely.
You can feel the effects of the wind, but you can't actually see the wind. You can see it. Now, with certain instruments, you may measure the wind and measure its velocity,
Yeah.
but can you really see it?
No.
But you believe it's there.
Exactly.
You believe, yes, so the Muslim, in terms of the ones, any person who understands and who studies the creation, who reflects upon it, the tafakkur and all that, he realizes he has to come, his intelligence would take him to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. At least to La ilaha illallah, there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah.
Allah.
That would at least take him there. And inshallah, from that point on to Muhammad Rasulullah. But the point is that one understands then from that concept of the Rabb, of the one that we have a Rabb, that we have a creator, that not everything can be understood by us.
Definitely.
We accept that.
Yeah.
So for a Muslim to say, I don't understand it, so I reject that, so then you reject the wind? You reject other things in creation that you don't understand. You don't understand everything. So do you reject it? You accept it.
Yeah.
You accept it because man has told you to accept it.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm
Yes,
saying?
yes.
Someone has told you, but that which comes from your Rabb, you're going to say, I'm not going to accept that. Of course, this is not even using what we will call our logic.
Yeah.
This is not even logical from that particular
Allah,
standpoint.
that's true.
So this is something. So another thing that happens that I find that something that we find sometimes among, again, Muslims who maybe are innovating or not really having good understanding is you find those that are rejecting, they say, I won't take that because I don't understand it. Or the other extreme would be, I'm going to do more of something because I believe if I do more of what the Prophet ﷺ did, it is better for me.
Allah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if the Prophet ﷺ said, 4 rakahs for dhuhr is good, I'll do 6. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that kind of a thing, and this is where logic goes off track.
Exactly.
Whether it goes right or left, it goes off track. We have to stay on the sirat al-mustaqim. We need to take it straight. Take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us,
Allah.
and do that which Allah has commanded of us, and to believe that what Allah has given us is enough for us. That we don't have to understand everything. First of all, here's the big thing. I think the most important thing is this. Whatever we need to know to get to Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made plain for us.
Allah, definitely.
Whatever we need to know to get to Jannah and to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it plain for us.
Allah.
So there may be other things that we may not completely, fully understand,
It's a test.
but it's there.
Yes.
And we follow it to the best of our ability. This is why we caution Muslims to not say, I reject that.
Exactly.
Simply say, don't say you reject it. Say, better to say, Allah knows best to say, I don't fully understand, but I accept it.
Allahu Akbar.
Because rejecting is one thing, Not understanding is another thing.
Yeah, it's two different things.
It's two different things.
Exactly.
Because I can not understand, but still accept. I
Yes.
don't understand that, but I accept that.
Yes, yes.
You understand? I won't reject it simply because I don't understand it, particularly when we know that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, if you say as a Muslim, I believe in the Quran and I believe in the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, we are bound to accept.
Exactly.
Now, we should continue to seek understanding.
Alhamdulillah.
And we should, by first asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, raise me, elevate me in my understanding, of your laws and your commandments.
It's even there.
And that which I don't understand, I will accept, no problem, because I'm happy that you are my Lord.
Alhamdulillah.
And I'm happy that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is my messenger. And I'm happy that Islam is my deen. And really this is enough. So the believer takes that kind of position and that kind of an attitude. And the believer, the mu'min fights against the shaitan, against these kinds of thoughts to say, no, you can't accept that because it doesn't meet, your logic and that your reasoning. And we have this a lot, unfortunately, and I think some of this is a product of other ideologies that we have adopted and we've accepted, and we try to apply these things to Islam. Or we are under the pressure maybe of under influences.
Yeah.
We're under those, like just an example, like let's say polygyny, for instance. So this is kind of a popular thing that many of I think those who are against Islam like to use against the Muslims or the status or the rights of the position of women in Islam.
Yeah.
So they want to use that, against the Muslims.
Subhanallah.
But the Muslim has to say, we accept this.
Yeah.
If it was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we accept it. That there's benefit in it. Now, if somebody abuses it, that's the fault of the person that abused it.
It's true.
It's not the fault of it's not the problem with Islam.
Subhanallah, it's very true.
The problem is with the person who is applying it.
Yeah.
Because maybe someone said, oh, well, this is such a problem. Okay, is the fault with Islam, or is the problem with
individual?
With the individual.
Yeah.
So this is why in the West now, the people who are, many people who are, trying, attacking Islam and are afraid of Islam, they're trying to attack Islam based upon what Muslims do.
Yeah.
Some Muslims do.
Subhanallah. They're actually judging Muslim according to the individual.
Yes, exactly. Judging
Quran.
Islam according to the individual. No. So this is why when we're giving dawah to people, to non-Muslims, we tell them, listen, don't base Islam and don't judge Islam based upon me, upon the Muslims.
Yeah.
Judge Islam based upon the Quran and the Sunnah and the best human being, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the ones that came after him. His Sahaba and those generations. You see, this is the way that we have to judge things, and when we judge it that way, then we can have the things in the proper perspective. And this is the role of the education, is to help us to be able to critically think, to have critical thinking. This is one of the big, sometimes subjects, now about how to teach critical thinking, how to think.
Allah, yes.
But the critical thinking for the Muslim has a foundation. And the critical thinking for the Muslim has a foundation in the Quran and in the Sunnah, how to discern things, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given to us and told us what's right and what's wrong, what's good, what's not good, what's beneficial, what's not beneficial. So then when we're going through our critical thinking process, we're using that as a guide. We're using that as a baseline, because then we know we can't go beyond that. We can't go under that. We can't go over that. We have to stay on top of that.
Which is very true indeed. Like what you said in the beginning was that we were not born alim. We were not born as ulama, as knowledgeable person. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla has removed from the womb of your mother, you did not know anything.
Yes.
So for you to know, and then again, Allah Azza wa Jalla, then He says, He stopped praising the people who knows, who studies, who get themselves educated. And then Allah Azza wa Jal start praising them. Even their place will be in Jannah. Even if ever we look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, whenever the Sahabiyat as well, whenever they want to get married, the Prophet sallallahu will ask them, have you studied or read Surah An-Nur? Because before getting married you need to be educated and everything.
Yes.
But one of the misconceptions that the people have, especially back in the West, is that they believe that Islam do not allow the female to get educated. What's that message for them? What do you think we should tell them? I mean, they believe that education only for male, because they've heard from some places in some countries that they don't allow the women to go to, the girls or women to be educated. No, they had to stay in the house, they had to be like this, they can't do anything. But no, that's totally against Islam.
Of course.
The wife of the Prophet ﷺ who narrated almost 2,000 hadith,
Yes.
and many ulama got studied from
From her.
Aisha radiallahu anha.
She was a scholar.
A scholar.
She's one of our great scholars.
Yes,
Aisha
great scholar.
radiallahu anha. Yes.
So that this is actually misconception that the people have, that no, Islam, they don't actually emphasize on ladies or girls or women to be educated. No, this is totally untrue.
Actually, in many ways, in some senses, we need the ladies to be educated in some ways more than the men, in some cases, in many ways, from
Very
the standpoint of the raising of the family.
Exactly.
So
the one is supposed to be more educated.
It would be illogical,
Yeah.
you understand what I mean, to not to want our ladies and our women to be educated,
Yes.
so that they can raise the children in the right way, to raise them on
best
the
of
proper
mothers.
foundation. Exactly right. Because then they have to know how to raise the children, what the rules are in Islam, as they are bringing them up, from infancy into childhood. So just that alone in itself. But again, the reality, I mean, in terms of from Islamic practice, is Islam never has kept the woman away. Islam has never kept the woman away from learning and from educating herself at all.
Yes.
Not at all. As again, even from the earliest time and from the very beginning of the Islamic period during the time of Islam, in terms of the wife of the Prophet, Aisha,
Yes.
she was a scholar, as we said.
Yeah.
And many thousands of hadith,
Yes.
hadith came from her.
Yes,
And the men went to her
To study.
To study.
Yeah, to ask for fatwa, for verdicts. Yeah.
So that by itself takes away that particular argument.
It's very true.
By
indeed.
itself. And she learned. And how did she learn? She learned from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So one of the things too, I think one of the misconceptions that we have is that learning only has to take place in a certain particular environment.
Okay.
That it only has to be in a classroom with so many books and so many chairs and And yes, in these days and times, this is normally how the education is delivered.
Yes.
Okay? But education wasn't delivered like that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ.
No.
It wasn't delivered in that way. That wasn't the mode of delivery
Yes.
for that. So the women, just like the men, they learned at the feet of the Prophet ﷺ.
Allahu Akbar.
This is how they learned. So even today, even when we educate our young children, before even they get to school, where do they learn? At the feet of the mother.
Allahu Akbar.
They learn at the feet of the mother.
Allahu Akbar.
And we encourage, of course, all of our women and our young girls, and to educate themselves. And yes, in these days and times, if going to the universities in the right settings, of course, alhamdulillah, get your education.
Yes.
But get your education so that then you can, again, raise your families.
Yes.
And you can, again, teach the society,
Yes,
so that it can be
definitely.
beneficial. So there's nothing in Islam, for those who say this, I mean, there's nothing that actually, in reality, bears that out. I mean, what's really amazing about that, those who make that claim actually don't have any real basis for making that claim, to be honest with you. But this is just something that they want to use as a means, as a means for distorting the reality of Islam. I mean, I'll just say myself personally, I mean, I have 5 daughters, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
All of them are educated.
Allahu Akbar.
I mean, formally educated.
Alhamdulillah.
You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, and this is something that's meritorious, because now, alhamdulillah, they can help to educate other women and their families as well.
Yes, and they can be big beneficiary for the society. as well.
Beneficial for the society.
Hospitals, being teachers.
Exactly right, because we need teachers that are female.
Yes.
We need doctors that are female. We need engineers. We need all of the elements of society.
Yes.
By both men and women.
Yes, definitely.
By both men and women, because this is they are our partners in this life, and they bring a value to the society. And Islam does not keep that away. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said, don't keep the women from going to the masjid.
Oh, definitely. It's true.
Don't prevent them from going to the masjid, because the masjid is the place in which you learn.
It's a source of
It was
knowledge.
in the early days, it was the educational center.
It was the
that was
university.
the school.
Yeah.
The school was the masjid.
Yeah, it even said that the first university was the masjid of the Prophet
The first
Muhammad
was
sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
exactly right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so these are, and again, these are just people who want to distort, Islam from that standpoint. But the reality is really something different, of course.
Alhamdulillah. It's very true. But sometimes when we try to differentiate between a society that got a lot of, that they're full of ignorant people, and a society with knowledgeable people, definitely they're different. They're very different.
Yes.
But if ever, like for example, that what we've noticed in some of the countries, that we find out that knowledge are not there, and then they're actually interpreting the Quran in their own way.
Yes.
And this is when you find out that those people are actually taking things out of context from the Quran, and they're not actually, they did not get their or the interpretation of the Quran from a knowledgeable person. So this is when you find out that such community or society are giving a bad picture about Islam.
Well, this is true, and I think this is important to make this particular point, because you're right. They do point to those societies. Of course, they can't point to the societies where the women are in the universities and they're educated,
Exactly.
and they're doctors and they're engineers. Obviously, they can't point, but they point to those societies. And what has happened there is that the chain has been broken. The link, there's a link, some links missing, because the links, all when they're properly put together, go back to the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we allow or if we break one of those links, then that means that the knowledge is going to be broken. So now, if we don't have the link all the way in terms of Islamic knowledge back to the Prophet ﷺ, then that way we're going to start devising our own methods and our own methodologies. And one of the things we talked about last week was, again, allowing other ideologies, to filter in, to become a part, of the Islamic knowledge, or begin to mix it with that. And then that, of course, confuses things. And then people begin to think that, well, I can do this and I can do that. And they start interpreting it in ways that wasn't interpreted, based upon the Islamic sciences, upon the pure Islamic thought and jurisprudence, But that's because, again, these links are missing. So, and we haven't thought, we haven't asked ourselves, is the knowledge that I have, the knowledge that I'm applying, is it sound? Is it, can I trace it back to the Prophet ﷺ?
Allah.
You understand? And this is what, as Muslims, we have to do. We have to continue to renew ourselves in this regard. We have to renew ourselves, and this is one of the great blessings of Ramadan, for instance.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, we're fasting and we're reading the Quran, but one of the things that we should be doing, not just going through the ritual of not only just the ritual of fasting and the ritual of reading the Quran, but also contemplating and renewing ourselves and trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allah.
And in doing that, then we have to say, in order to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the proper way, I have to know Allah.
Allah.
I have to know Allah as He wants us, as He has allowed Himself to be known.
MashaAllah. So you mean the first knowledge is Al-Quran?
Yes, exactly right. So once we reattach ourselves to the Quran and to the Sunnah, once we do that, then we begin those links, those broken links, we can cement them again together, and then we can understand is that, okay, what I was doing before, what I understood before, I have to let that go, because this does not go back to the Prophet ﷺ.
We just wanted to end with something.
Sure.
One of the advice that you would give to the parents. Do you actually agree to those parents who send their kids first to make hifz al-Quran and then go to the grade 1 and 2? Would you advise parents to do this?
Yeah, this would be good. Listen, why can't they do it at 3 and 4? Why can't you start your children at 3 and 4 learning the Quran?
Yes.
And learning it, and then advance them on.
So you mean when at the age of 3 and 4, they can easily absorb it?
Because they can easily absorb it at that particular point.
Yes.
Exactly right. And then when you and don't be afraid. Sometimes as parents, we become afraid.
Yes.
We become influenced by what's happening in the society. Or my child is going to be behind. No. Because one of the things that we found, even in terms of just normal studies and secular and research, when the child has matured, the child is better able now to advance through his studies. So sometimes we want to push our kids in terms of the secular knowledge a lot faster than really needs to take place. But I would suggest, if you are unable or unwilling, or you're a little hesitant about starting them with the Quran, in those ages, at least do it parallel.
Yes.
At least do it parallel.
Yeah.
At least.
Alhamdulillah. Me myself as a teacher, I've got some hifz al-Quran that I teach.
Alhamdulillah.
But alhamdulillah, they are the best in their memory.
Yes.
They're the best in punctuality.
Yes.
They're the best even in while writing and everything. Why? Because when they were small, that brain was constantly working, and then they're the one who don't forget the books at home.
Alhamdulillah.
Why? Because it is said that the hifz al-Quran, they're the one who are less in forgetting things.
Yes.
Because alhamdulillah, their brain has been working
and there's a discipline.
Yes, they've got a discipline.
There is a
and the
discipline
barakah of
learning
Allah Azza wa
Quran.
Jal.
Yeah, there's a discipline to that. And
Alhamdulillah.
so you take, and this is what that young man was saying, going back to the beginning, we talked about the young man who was one of the contestants in the Quran contest here in Dubai last summer. That was the part of what he shared with us, that it was the part of this was the discipline that he learned while learning Quran. And he was able to apply that same discipline to his biology, to his chemistry, to his mathematics, his algebra, that same discipline. And again, the activity of the mind, and to be able to remember, and to be able to think, and to logically put things in the right order. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Sheikh, it's been a pleasure having you.
Jazakallah khair.
May Allah Azza wa Jal really make this attempt to please Him.
Ameen.
And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us Jannah in this dunya and the akhirah.
Ameen.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, He says, all on who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn His reward. Don't forget the